Alright, we got the sides of a triangle have lengths of x, x plus 4, and 20. If the length of the longest side is 20, which means that c is equal to 20. What values of x make the triangle acute? So if the triangle is acute, we know that a squared plus b squared is going to be bigger than c squared. So we're going to use this inequality to figure this out here. So a squared, we're going to call x a. So I've got a squared plus b squared is going to be x plus 4. So x plus 4, that quantity squared, has to be bigger than c squared, which is 20 squared. So let's go ahead and simplify both sides here. I got an x squared plus, this thing is a FOIL problem. I've got to expand. I've got two of those being multiplied together. So I got to make sure I distribute twice here. So x times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. 4 times x is 4x. And then last, I've got 4 times 4 is 16. Combine your two like terms and you end up with x squared plus 8x plus 16. That has to be bigger than 20 squared, which is 400. Go through, combine your like terms, and I get 2x squareds plus 8x plus 16 has to be bigger than 400. I get to this step and a couple different things that we can do. Number one, we recognize it's a quadratic. And what I mean by that is I've got this x squared term. So I need to get everything over to one side. So let's go ahead and move our 400 over. So minus 400 gives me minus or negative 384. That's that's got to be greater than 0. Next thing is these are all even numbers, so I can divide everything by 2. So if I divide this by 2, divide this by 2, divide this by 2, I end up with a little simpler quadratic, x squared plus 4x minus, and what is that? That's a 192 is greater than 0. All right, at this point, I've got a couple options. I can use quadratic formula. I can try to factor it. It looks like it might be factorable. So I need two things. They're going to multiply to 192 and add to positive 4. So I'm going to start looking at factors of 192. So I know the factors of 192, 1 and 192, but that's not very helpful because that doesn't have a difference of 4. 2 and, what is that? 2 and, looks like 96. Doesn't have a difference of 4. 3 goes into 192 64 times. No difference of 4 there. 4 goes into 192. Looks like 40, 48 times. Okay, so we continue this process. We look at factors, and what we're looking for is a difference of 4. So any combination of these two things needs to give us a difference of 4. When we get down to about 10, 10 doesn't go into it, 11 doesn't go into it, but 12 does go into it. It turns out that 12 and 16 are the factors, excuse me, of 192 that has a difference of 4 between them. All right, so I got to go and factor this quadratic up here. So I'm going to factor it and get x minus 12 and x plus 16 in order to get myself a difference of a positive 4. And that's got to be greater than 0. So at this point, this is kind of the cutoff, depending on how far you got in Algebra 1. If you didn't get far enough in Algebra 1 to look at quadratic inequalities, don't worry about it. If you did, you should know what this quadratic looks like. So what happens is our quadratic here are my axes. Our quadratic, this one opens up because this is a positive number in front of the quadratic. It's a +1 in front of the quadratic. I've got a root here at x equals 12, and I've also got a root at x equals -16. So here's a root, very generally speaking, and it opens up. So what this is asking is, where is this thing positive? Where is this thing positive? Where is this quadratic positive? And where this happens to be positive is in these areas right here, out here and up here. And for what values of x am I going to get a positive result? Well, the problem is we're talking about this within the context of a triangle. So my values for x are going to have to be positive in order for this to work. These values of x over here are negative, so the only ones that will work here are these values right here. So to finish off this problem real quick, here's my cutoff. My cutoff was 12. That was one of my roots. So any value where x is bigger than 12 will actually make this triangle acute. Okay? So any value where x is bigger than 12 will make this triangle acute.